Hello everyone, and today I'll be taking a look into a $330 Intel quad-core laptop from 2015 to see if it's any good at gaming along with a few other benchmarks. In today's day and age, having 4 cores is normal and 8 cores is nothing unusual, but what makes this laptop stand out is how low its debut price of €300 was. This, and combined with the fact that it was a quad-core processor, would have made it an excellent choice for a budget laptop back in 2015. So let's see how it held up throughout the years, and we'll start off with the specifications of this computer. Here I present to you the Acer Aspire E15 ES1-512. There were several variants of this computer with several different configurations, but the one in this system is the 4-core Intel Pentium N3540 clocked at 2.16 GHz that boosts up to 2.6 GHz with 4 threads, all built upon the 22 nanometer process. In addition, this computer came along with 4 GB of DDR3 RAM clocked at 666 MHz, utilized integrated Intel HD graphics, and shipped with a 5400 RPM 500 GB hard drive. When I first got this computer though, it was spewing out all sorts of disk errors, and after letting it try to repair itself for 3 days straight, I ended up just buying an entirely new drive. And thanks to a friend of mine, I was able to get a 7200 RPM 500 GB drive for only $10. At times they can be found for about that much on the used market, but for the most part cost around $15 to $20. So I simply swapped the drive, installed Windows 10, and began testing. I'm guessing that the previous owner somehow destroyed the drive and didn't know how much of an easy fix it would be and opted just to simply throw the whole system out. And judging by the condition that the laptop was in, it had definitely seen a very abusive life. There were all sorts of streaks and marks on the outside of the laptop, and the screen was covered with those distinct spittle marks as if someone was yelling at the computer. So I have a hypothesis. I'm guessing someone, likely a small child, was playing a low-end game on the system, such as Roblox, got angry, screamed, and smashed his hand onto the laptop. The screaming would explain the spit marks, and the smashing would explain the missing keys and general looks of abuse on this laptop. But hey, I got a free PC out of it. Due to this, I was sure to give it a good cleaning. Overall, this laptop is pretty light for its size. It features a slim design and comes in at a weight just shy of 5 pounds. The screen size is 15.6 inches and has a screen resolution of 1366 by 768, which honestly didn't look that bad. One final aspect that I'd like to touch upon before going over the benchmarks of this laptop is the general placement of its ports. Most of them were actually on the back side of the computer, behind the screen, and not on the sides as is typical in many systems. I believe that this was done due to design constraints as a goal of making this laptop as slim as possible. As for general usage of this computer, it was fine, I guess. Loading web pages was surprisingly pretty slow, even after a fresh install of Windows, and although downloading and setting up softwares I used didn't take excessively long, I've seen it done much quicker before. However, it is still plenty functional, and for an on-the-go daily driver cheap laptop, it wouldn't have been a bad choice back in 2015. But now that we got all the information out of the way, how about we head into some benchmarks on this laptop. When testing this system, the first thing I did was run Cinebench. The test went smoothly and achieved a score of 158. This score seemed on par with other laptops with the same CPU, and overall it performed as expected, although its score was none too impressive. After that, I headed into some gaming tests, starting off with 2004's title of Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. At first, I maxed out the settings and ran the game in 1280 by 768p, but the frame rate was only able to remain in the upper 20s. However, when I ran it with the lowest settings, I got an average frame rate of 47 FPS. And although my intent was to focus on and really utilize the CPU to its maximum capacity, the Intel HD graphics chip was holding the system's performance back in this test and did so for many other tests as well. Regardless, the game ran well. It was more than playable on this system. So, since the game performed so well, I decided to run a more recent title on the system and played some Minecraft. With the lowest settings and 3 chunks and resolution of 720p, the game actually ran pretty well. There was the initial laggy bit when you first load into the world and it renders all the chunks, but running around and rendering new ones didn't have much impact on the overall performance. After a few minutes of benchmarking, Minecraft got a respectable score of 57 FPS, so I moved on to the next test. I then tried another modern-ish game and ran some 60 seconds with the low settings and a resolution of 768p. In the scurrying around grabbing random stuff bit in the beginning portion, the average frame was in the lower 20s. However, upon reaching the bunker and beginning the main part of the game, the frame rate rose to the upper 30s and achieved an overall average frame rate of 23 FPS. So, I've been playing through Far Cry 2 recently, and since it's a much older game, I wanted to see how well it could actually perform on this laptop. With the lowest settings and a resolution of 768p, the average frame rate came to be 29 FPS. But even though this number isn't particularly good, it was more than enough and the gameplay actually felt pretty fluid. Since this installment of the Far Cry series performed so well, I then ran its predecessor on the system with the original Far Cry. I ran the auto detect feature, which put most settings on high, and began the opening level. After running around and killing a few enemies, the average frame rate was 43 FPS and the game performed well. Sticking with these older titles, I then ran some Half-Life 2 on the system. Although this game is very easy to run, I still adjusted all the settings to the lowest and commenced testing. Once again, I ran around and shot some enemies, but in this benchmark, the frame rate was a solid 63 FPS, making it our best resulting test of today. I then took a look at a racing game from roughly the same era and played some Need for Speed Underground. Due to its old age, I ran all the settings at their highest with a resolution of 1024 by 768p and achieved an average frame rate of 51 FPS. But in the end, not even the good performance of this laptop could save me from my terrible driving skills. Last but not least, I ran some Into the Gungeon. Released in 2016, this was the youngest game out of all the ones I tested on this computer. With the lowest settings applied and a resolution of 768p, the average frame rate resulted in 45 FPS and the game ran well, thus concluding my benchmarking of this 5-year-old budget laptop. So there you have it. That's how well a budget laptop from back in 2015 can perform in some basic gaming tasks. Overall, I guess it can perform decently in some games, but it is largely limited to older ones or ones with very minimal hardware specifications. One thing I noticed though was that in some of the tests the CPU was not the bottleneck, and more often than not it was the Intel HD graphics chip. It wasn't entirely due to that though, as the RAM did see significant usage in some games, but could be easily upgraded to 8GB. However, to upgrade the GPU would be a bit more difficult than usual due to the horrendous design of this laptop chassis. To access the internals of this computer, which is necessary for me to swap out the hard drive, you first need to unscrew about 15 screws on the underside of the computer, pry the keyboard and top cover off with a knife, unplug the track bag and keyboard from the motherboard, and only then can you reach the internals. So not only is it a hassle when compared to other laptops in which you can simply remove some of the bottom panel, but you can't even test boot the system to see if your changes were successful without reconnecting it all back together, aside from the screws. Long story short, if you have a similar model laptop, don't open it unless you really have to. I mean, it doesn't seem like it would be that much of an issue, but I encountered a problem where the trackpad was not properly working, and after disconnecting and reconnecting the cable a few times, it was still busted. After a quick Google search though, it turns out that all I had to do was change the touchpad format from advanced to basic in the BIOS. But in sum, I'd say this laptop was the perfect average of a cheap family computer that performs just well enough to accomplish the basic tasks it was assigned, and although it is not properly equipped to handle modern gaming, it does perform well in the older and lower spec titles that I tested on it. Regardless, thank you for watching and I hope you enjoyed the video. Also, please leave a comment below because interactions with viewers will help boost this video in the YouTube algorithm. While you're at it, please subscribe because that helps a lot in video quality and production and also positively affects my day. Finally, leave any questions or suggestions in the comments below and have a great day. Bye.